The people of Sul region have been living peacefully for centuries until the Somaliland government wanted to forcefully annex the region and declare it as part of their state. The locals were against this move, as they wanted to remain part of Somalia, so a conflict broke out between the two sides. As time passed, the violence got worse and soon escalated into a genocide. The Somaliland forces started killing off innocent people in the region, destroying their homes and displacing them from their ancestral lands. Many families were forced to flee for safety and seek refuge in different parts of Somalia.
gobolka Doolo ayaa soo dhaweeyay in ka badan 1,000 qoys oo ka soo barakacay dagaalada iyo duqeynta maamulka Somaliland ka wada gobolka Sool maalintii lixaad.
degmada danood gobolka Doolo waxaan ku soo dhaweynaynaa dadkii ka soo barakacay gobolka Sool ee madafiida iyo kaaraha la eegtay.
The Somaliland government tried to cover up these atrocities by manipulating facts and silencing any voices that opposed them. In order to understand what really happened in LasAnood City, I conducted an extensive investigation that included interviews with witnesses, survivors, and victims of the genocide.
maamulka Somaliland argagixisada shacabka magaalada LasAnood suuqooda iyo duqeynta toos ugu wadaan. halkan waa xabaalihii hargeyga ee magaalada LasAnood. halkan waxaad ku arkaysaan cagaftaasoo qodaysa xabaalo wadareedyadii dadka shahaadada Allah u naxariisto dhammaantood ay maanta soo xasuuqeen. waa intii maanta soo xasuuqeen bay qodaysaa oo diyaarinaysa ilaahay dhammaantood hogga ha u nuuriyo. waa dad
ee dagaalku uu socday dhaawac badan baanu hospitaalada geenanay. marka magaalada dhinaca bari anagoo joogna waxaa dhacay guri noo jira adigu wax ka yar ilaa 4 kilomitir meelahaas waxaa ku dhacay hoobiye. marka qoladayda caafimaadka degdega waan isqaybinay qayb waxaanu galnay gurigii oo waxaan damacnay maadaama gurigaas uu hoobiye ku dhacay bal haddii ay wax ku jiraan in bal gurigii ma garanaysaay laga soo saaro. runtii qisa aad u naxdin badan bay ahayd oo gurigii waan soo galnay. gurigii waxaan ugu soo galnay hal oday baa guriga joogay oo xaafadda intii kale waa ka kaxeen. odayguna waa hurday oo dagaal inuu dhacayo iyo hubkay waxa ma maqlayn. oday waayeelana waa ah ilaahay u naxariisto isagoo meeyda baanu meesha ka soo saarnay.
The citizens of LasAnood soon began to take matters into their own hands, forming armed groups to protect themselves against Somaliland's forces.
Musa Bihi and his administration are over here committing a genocide. It's 2023 and we're watching children and women being targeted. He tried to silence the city of LasAnood. LasAnood will not be silenced. We want to let the world know that he's a criminal, a war criminal. He's shooting everybody in the city. We have children here. We have doctors. We have elders that have lost their lives. He's senselessly killing everybody that he sees in sight. He's killing civilians, women, and children. We want to let the world know that if there's any terrorist organization, it's Somaliland. Somaliland is a terrorist organization, and they're senselessly killing our children, our parents, and we're just here trying to protect our city and our lives. We want to let the world know that there is no terrorist organization in LasAnood. We got our elders, we got our women, we got our children, and we're just trying to have a normal life. He tried to silence us, and we will not be silenced. We want freedom for LasAnood, and we will not be forced by any administration. Thank you so much.
The leaders of Somaliland had been using false propaganda to manipulate their people for centuries, and now the situation was escalating. They had begun to call their own people terrorists and had issued a false ceasefire in an attempt to cover up a massacre that was being perpetrated against the citizens. The government of Djibouti has been secretly supplying weapons to the Somaliland bombers targeting civilian populations in LasAnood. As a result of this illegal arms trade, the Somaliland forces were able to equip their vehicles with BM-21 and BM-105 missiles, both of which are not allowed in Somalia due to the arms embargo. It was the 14th day of the ongoing conflict in LasAnood City. The Somaliland army had been bombarding the city with artillery fire, destroying buildings, and taking innocent lives. I watched as a mother and child desperately ran from a building as it was hit by a shell. As they reached safety, I could see that the child had been injured and his mother was in a state of shock. My friend, who had been living in LasAnood for years, looked at me sorrowfully and said, "This is why we must keep fighting for our freedom. We had to find a way to fight back against the Somaliland forces, or else more innocent people would die." We gathered together some of the people from the city who were willing to fight and began to plan our attack. We knew we were up against a much larger force, but we were determined to do what we could to protect our city. Mohammed Farah is a prominent figure in the city of LasAnood, an area of Somalia occupied by Somaliland. Early this morning, he and his family were woken up by a loud sound coming from outside. When they looked out the window, they saw smoke rising from their home. The house had been hit by a shell fired by Somaliland forces. Farah quickly got his family to safety and investigated the damage. He was shocked to discover that the shell had hit his bedroom and damaged several parts of the house. He remembers feeling a strange sense of calm in that moment, as if a part of him knew this would happen someday in spite of all the efforts to prevent it.
aniguna waxaan doonayaa inaan sabcaalo saaka baan marka waxaan sii horta dadku ha soo tooso todobadii bay meelaha iyo toban markii xabadu dhacday mise todobadii iyo 20 hadda ma kala sixi karo deegaanka halkaa chief halkaa lagaga soo dhiibay wad garanaysan ilaahay bay badbaashay alxamdulillaah rabbil caalamiin anigu waa noolahay saaka waxna ima gaarin.
Farah soon learned that other traditional leaders in LasAnood had also been targeted with artillery fire. He was determined to speak out and tell his story, so he took to social media and started speaking out against the attacks on traditional leadership in LasAnood. The war between Somaliland and LasAnood had intensified with innocent civilians caught in the crossfire. After weeks of continuous shelling that Somaliland bombing in the city, the two sides had reached a stalemate. The citizens of LasAnood were hopeful when a Somaliland government announced ceasefire. However, their optimism was short-lived as the shelling resumed the next day, this time targeting the city's hospital, the LasAnood main hospital. As news spread that the hospital had been hit, doctors and nurses rushed to evaluate injured civilians from the premises. Many of these civilians were injured due to previous shelling and had taken refuge there in hopes of receiving medical care. Witnesses reported seeing a pregnant mother died in the hospital. This tragedy exposed the disrespect and hatred Somaliland has for this region.